Okay, welcome back to Life After Accutane, a channel that I set up to share the stories of people who've been negatively affected by a drug known as Accutane, Roaccutane, or the generic name Isotretinoin. And this is the first interview I've done so far, and it's featuring a guy who I came across on YouTube probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. So this has been about 8 or 9 years in the making, and I really want to thank you, Stefan, for what you did and having the courage to put that first video on YouTube. Because when I was at my worst and feeling fucking terrible, I was sort of trawling through the internet trying to find people that were going through the same as me, and you were one of the first people I found. So if you hadn't have put that video on YouTube, I think things would have been a lot more difficult, because I would have felt quite alone in what I was dealing with. So I've invited you on the channel just to have a discussion with you about some of the things that you've been through since taking this drug. So we'll get straight into it. Won't waste any time. How old were you when you took the drug?
I was 15, so I started getting acne when I was 14, and then it just was getting worse. Obviously, I tried different soaps and face washes, and I think I took antibiotics, but not for long, because back then, before I got used to taking lots of supplements like now, I couldn't swallow anything. And I don't know if the antibiotics were big. They probably weren't. But I don't think I was on them long, but clearly they don't work for a lot of people anyway. And so it got to the point where my acne was getting pretty bad. And so, yeah, 15, I got referred by a doctor.
Okay, and how bad was your acne when you took it? Would you say it was severe,
Pretty
or?
bad. Not as bad as some people's. I didn't have super cystic acne, but I did have quite a lot. So mostly on my face, it was on my cheeks and temples, maybe a few on my nose. Didn't really get them on my forehead or chin. And then I had it on my chest, and I had bacne pretty bad. So I used to be very insecure about that. I remember being in PE class and having to change, and our school was fairly strict on what you could wear, and I would just have a simple white vest under my school shirt. And then the what's her name? The fucking head of the school lady.
Head teacher, headmistress.
Master, I guess, mistress, saw me in the playground and said, "Oh, you're not allowed to wear that shirt you've got under there. It was just a vest." I should have said, "Oh, but I've got really bad acne. I'm really insecure about it," but I didn't, and I carried on wearing it because there's no way I could let all the guys in my year see how bad my bacne was when I had to get changed. So I always had that under, but I couldn't hide it on my face, obviously, and so I think at one point I started getting my mum to put her makeup on me, and then people noticed that and said, "Are you wearing makeup?" And I just said no. But yeah, I remember that a lot of people just seemed a little ignorant about it. Think they were bullying me or trying to be rude. They would just say, like, "Do you wash your face? Why is your skin so like pus filled?" I remember one of my step cousins who was probably about 7 or 8, and obviously they just speak whatever. They're not trying to be hurtful either. They're just speaking what they see. And he said, "Why have you got millions of spots on your face?" And so it was pretty bad. I'm not going to pretend that there wasn't a case for me to go on the drug. Like with some people, I think only have a few, and there's no way they should go on Accutane. But for me, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't have taken the medication in terms of my skin, whether it would have cleared up. Because you don't see many adults with severe acne, so I guess a lot of it is hormonal and probably sorts itself out, but scarring and that could have been an issue.
I'd say from what I see these days, there's a lot more young people have got acne. I notice it a lot more, and it's kind of annoying that nobody's asking the question as to why, and like trying to figure out what the root cause is. Would you say, how much would you say, like the opinions or things that other people said influence your decision to take such a harsh medication to clear your acne? If you hadn't have been subjected to all that kind of teasing and bullying and stuff,
Right.
would you have been so bothered about your acne?
I think so, because we do live in a culture that values looks and appearance, and my acne was probably the worst in my school. There weren't many people, because I got it quite young. I got friends who after school started to get acne, but not that severe. But I was like the only one going through it apart from one other person. And what actually happened was my mum worked at my school and still works there now as a dinner lady, actually. And she knew another girl in my year called, well, I don't know what her name was, but she had acne a little worse than me, and pretty much everyone else didn't have it seemingly at all. And that's not me trying to exaggerate. It's like everyone else seemed fucking fine apart from me and this other girl. And my mum said she's on this drug Accutane. Fuck, I wish I never heard of that. But yeah, my mum first heard of it, and I think the general vibe of our society, or again culture, is that doctors are amazing, and that if you have any health problem or issue, and obviously like acne, in my view, isn't a health problem necessarily, although diet could influence it, but no one's going to die of acne, or it's not a health problem as such. People just go down the doctor route, antibiotics, don't really understand. And of course, doctors don't really understand that most of acne probably isn't caused by bacteria, although I appreciate they probably work for some people. But I saw this girl, Julia. I remember actually, even now, that her skin looked so bad at one point. That must have been when she was first on Accutane. But then it started to clear up. So she was on it, probably months before I was. And I saw her skin get massively better. And of course, my mind at the time is like, oh my God, I need this medication because nothing else is working. Literally waking up every single day with more and more spots on my face. So, I just wanted it desperately. So while it was annoying to look people in the face and see them looking at my skin and kind of, it's a bit embarrassing for them to have to deal with speaking to me, I've always cared about the way I look to a high level, probably above most, and that isn't great. So I think I probably would have needed to do it for myself. I would have had to find a way to get rid of acne, because I would have been pretty down about that. And I was pretty down about it at the time, because it just didn't make any sense. I was always eating whatever I wanted, and then all of a sudden get to 14 and then 15, drastically get so much spots. It's like, what the fuck? And no one, again, like you say, no one really talks about why that might happen. It's just, oh, well, let's just give you a drug. And it's such a stupid way of dealing with every health problem. Just doctors and the medical industry, in my opinion, don't really care about finding the root cause. They are just in it for business.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you touched on something that I remember there. I remember when I first started getting a bit of acne, kind of like, like mothers talking to each other. And I remember somebody saying, oh, my son's taking an antibiotic for his acne. So you go off to the doctor, they give you an antibiotic. But none of those antibiotics actually worked. Like maybe they slightly work while you're on them. But then actually for a lot of people, when they stop taking them, acne comes back worse.
Yeah.
And
I knew another girl actually who did get fairly bad skin again, and she did go on antibiotics and it worked for her. And I remember there was that weird sort of almost like a deodorant stick, this gel, some kind of chemical that would get rid of acne. Tried that as well, and I think it probably helps to a small level, similar to the acne.org protocol. You're just putting loads of fucking peroxide on your face. So it's very bad for your skin, no doubt, but it probably stops the acne coming through as much. But I think, we can talk about what I maybe would have done instead of Accutane, because I definitely would not have taken the drug. But I definitely would have tried with diet. I don't always think that's enough, because I know a lot of people exhaust those options. They cut dairy and maybe even wheat, whatever, from their diet. And I think it is probably hormonal to a large degree as well, because it comes on suddenly when you're going through puberty.
Yeah, we could probably touch on that at the end of the video, when I talk about what I'm doing with my diet to try and rectify things and what I experienced with that. But
Sure.
what you're talking about there, what you've been talking about, what you experienced with people at school and stuff. I'll just share one thing that happened to me. There was a lot of things that happened to me when I started having spots, but I left school at 16 to become an aircraft technician, and I started started an apprenticeship as an aircraft technician. So I was working in a hangar with about 40 guys when I started getting acne, and they were pretty ruthless. Probably worse than school kids would have been. And I remember there was one day when I was sat in the staff room there eating my lunch, like room full of grown men, and I had like a yellow head or something on my nose, and the room went silent. And the guy who sat opposite me kind of leans over, looks at me, and says, "Can I dip my bread in that?" And then like the whole room just fucking erupted with laughter. And it's fucking shit, And what else can you do when you're a kid? You just have to sit there and kind of chuckle in embarrassment.
Yeah.
I remember there was one day they started calling me Spot. That was my nickname at work for a while, Spot, which was nice.
Brilliant.
And one guy was giving me a load of shit one day, and I pulled my overalls down, lifted up my shirt, and said, "Do you think do you think I like this?" And like had spots all over my back and everything. I said, "It fucking hurts, man. It's not just about how it looks; it fucking hurts as well. It's painful."
Yeah.
So I really wanted to do something about it, but I didn't take Accutane until I was 29. It was like really late that I took it, so I waited a long time.
Okay.
But anyway, this is about you. This is about you. So let's get back to my list of questions here. Okay, so what warnings were you given before you went on the drug?
Not a lot. So my GP made a point that I would have to go to the hospital to be prescribed. I think at one point he said last resort, but didn't explain the risks. He just said it is last resort, hence why before taking antibiotics, he said we'll have to try those first because they can't just refer people. But I didn't understand it at that time. I was pretty dumb or naive. But
the thing is, at that age, you're especially at that, when you're that young, you're relying on guidance of either the doctor or your parent, aren't you? Like you're not enough to.
And my mum's great, but my mum is not very switched on about these kinds of things, and she probably had no reason to expect anything like this could happen because she's taken medications for various things like everyone does and never had any huge problem, and Accutane wasn't that well heard of. And even now, most people probably Google it and see the positive side of people who, it cleared their skin up and they didn't get these health problems that we have. But I remember after I had to be examined, meaning that I had to get my back knee out for some lady to stare at and decide whether I could go on it. I probably had a second appointment to go back and talk through and do the waiver form, which again had no idea what really why am I having to sign a form? That didn't seem strange at the time. But yeah, the side effects that they listed were missing many of the important things. I don't remember it. I'm pretty sure it didn't have irritable bowel disease, which I don't think I have, but I don't think that was on there.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that on there either.
Suicide potential wasn't on there. It was stuff like dry skin, nosebleeds, joint pain. But again, they said statistically, based on who reports it, and I'm pretty sure I've never even reported these side effects, so most people won't because it's like, I'm fucked now, what's the point? So the stats are wrong anyway. But when they say, oh, if you might get 20% chance of nosebleeds throughout this medication, but the side effects all clear up when you go away. I remember them saying that. They said they're temporary. And this was 2005, so I didn't have a computer and Google wasn't used like it is now. I guess it was sort of starting out, but I had no reason in my mind to think that anything bad would happen. All I could see is this will hopefully clear my skin up. That was the most important thing for me. And I was just like, I want to sign this fucking form. Give me the drugs. And that's pretty much it. I don't feel that they gave a fair assessment. Well, definitely they didn't. That's not in my opinion. They didn't tell me the kind of things that could happen. Probably because they didn't know, and also because at the time it was less known. But yeah, definitely was not made aware of the risks.
Did you have any health problems before you took it?
No. Nothing. I didn't even get ill. Like, it was very rare. I remember going through the whole of my primary school. I got some kind of certificate because I'd never had a day off sick in my whole primary school. Partly because my mum, if I had a bit of a cold, she'd make me go in anyway. But no, I didn't have any health problems at all. Nothing.
You used to play a lot of football, didn't you? Did you?
Yeah, I was very active. I used to. I was never the best when it came to playing. I was pretty shit when we actually had a proper game in PE lessons. But I would play every night after school with my friends who lived close to me. I was very active. I was somewhat into skateboarding. I was never again good at skateboarding, but just generally enjoyed being fit and active back then. So yeah, and when I was on the medication, obviously we'll talk about some of the other side effects, but while I was on it, I did get some joint pain quite bad while on the drug that I was injured quite a lot, like so easily, just would sprain my ankle, couldn't really walk. I was thinking, because I was preparing for this chat, I was thinking, what might you ask me? And one of the things I remembered was when I was on the medication, I had no energy and the joint pain combined. And in one class, we were doing circuit training, and I just couldn't go on. So I was doing sit-ups. I was like, I literally can't do this. And the teacher at the time just lost it at me in front of everyone and just shouted, "Why have you stopped? Why are you being so lazy?" Something like that. And he made me carry on doing sit-ups while everyone just watched me. And rather than being a servant and being like, "Dude, I'm on some drug that's fucking me up," I didn't want anyone to know. I don't know why. I just didn't want anyone to know I was on Accutane. So I didn't tell anyone about it. I was very secretive about putting lip balm on. I thought that people would think it was lipstick. And so I went into the bathroom every hour to just do that. So maybe that was partly my personality and way of dealing with it. But I just didn't want to draw more attention to the fact I knew my skin was terrible, because that was already obvious.
Yeah, I remember when I was taking the drug, I was there was one night when I was actually DJing with Kate Lawler, that one Big Brother. She started out as a DJ after Big Brother, and yeah, I was like DJing alongside her, and my lips were peeling and everything. I was actually on the drug, and I kept having to like explain why, like why my lips were peeling. Like, it was shit.
Yeah.
But little was I to know that was the least of my worries. So hang on, let me get back to my questions here. Oh yeah, did you have I should probably ask, how long was your course and what was your dose? Can you remember?
I remember my course was 6 months. I came off it a month early for reasons we'll probably get into in another question of yours. And I can't remember my dose. I'm pretty sure it was something like 60 milligrams. It would have started off a little lower, but I'm pretty sure 60 sounds about right. But it was so long ago that I don't know.
Sorry, mate, you broke up there. How long did you say you were on it for?
Sorry. So I was prescribed a 6-month course, but I took the medication for 5 months due to coming off early, which we'll explain in a moment. And I think my dosage was about 60 milligrams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have a blood test before you went on it to check for the liver function and cholesterol and everything?
But they are meant to do them monthly, and that definitely did not happen.
Yeah, well, apparently, I've only just found out recently from somebody else I've been speaking with that apparently those are just guidelines. They're not. It's not actually set in stone. Yeah. So it seems to be the information on that seems to be a bit muddy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what side effects did you have while you're on it? You've mentioned some of them. Was there anything else that you haven't mentioned?
Yeah, so just to summarize, obviously the ones I've mentioned, joint pain, I had nosebleeds quite a lot of nosebleeds. That was annoying. The mental side effects, my skin was clearing up pretty well, but I would have basically mania, rage, crying for no reason, psychosis, I would even say, because I was so angry I felt like I could kill people. So if people teased me, like during football, for example, because I was not the best and I was also pretty much just living off adrenaline, thinking back, because I was pretty tired, but I was just pushing through it. I was pretty dizzy and stuff, and I was getting people like picking on me a little in football, just like, what's it called when they put the ball through your legs? You know what I mean?
And they nutmeg you.
Nutmeg. Yeah. Someone kept doing it to me, and that was really pissing me off. I was like, I'm gonna fucking lose my shit in a minute. And yeah, just that was the main reason I had to come off. I felt like I was gonna kill myself, or maybe kill other people, because I felt like crazy. But dry eyes, dry mouth, dry nose, dry everything, basically. Probably had digestive things, but I can't remember the exact timeline of when that started. I don't remember if my sex drive dropped while on the drug, but probably. Fatigue. That's probably it, but the joint pain was pretty bad. I remember getting this random toe infection. I had to have some lady come and scrape my toenail from quite low under my skin. That was painful. So I was getting like infections. There's probably a few others that I can't remember. Sweating. Oh yeah, shit. I was sweating like a bitch, like crazy. And people noticed that. And it was like, whoa. And red face.
It's nuts the amount of things that it does to you. You know, I remember some of the things that happened to me. Like, you mentioned gut issues. I remember having constipation and stuff, and obviously like dry skin, peeling lips, but towards the end of it, and the fatigue was just absolutely ridiculous. Like, I just felt like I was dying. You know, I was desperate to come off it at the end, and it was a real push to get through the last month. Okay, so
I just want to add to that as well. I remember another key moment was my prom. So I'd come off the drug weeks before my prom, because I came off it May of 2006, just before my birthday, which is probably how I remember. I remember that fatigue still being there, and I was like, I had this feeling that although I'd stopped the drug, this wasn't going to fix itself. It just felt so fucked. I was at my prom and I just felt dead inside. Like you'll have experienced that level of fatigue and depression where everyone around is normal, enjoying the food and whatever. And a couple of people like, come on, Lay, because that's my surname. And they're like, come on, Lay, cheer up. I'm like, nah, just felt like whatever, fuck this. So that's a key moment that sticks out of when I just knew that things weren't going to be right.
Yeah, you just started to feel sort of disconnected from the world, and it's bizarre. Like, when I was at my worst, I just felt like I was viewing life through somebody else's body. Have you ever seen that movie, Being John Malkovich?
I've not actually. No, I've seen
really weird. It's really weird. But basically, this guy discovers like this tunnel in a building, and if he goes into this tunnel, he ends up inside John Malkovich, and he can like control him and stuff. But at first, he finds it really difficult to control John Malkovich. That's what it felt. I felt like I was that guy in that movie trying to control somebody else's body. Like everything was affected, you know, just interaction with people. Even my handwriting deteriorated big time.
There's a term for that. You probably know it, right? Depersonalization and derealization. I get that now.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't get it so much these days. I used to get a lot of OCD as well, you know, like intrusive thoughts. And,
you did? Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's not good. It's only just eased off fairly recently, actually. And one of the things that I get it with is, unfortunately, knives. So whenever I'm cooking and I pick up a knife in the kitchen, thoughts about the knife sort of start creeping into my head, and then they just go round and round.
The problem with that is that it feels so wrong that although it is in reality just a thought and you're not choosing to have it, you can't help but to feel, what the hell is wrong with me? If I told anyone about this, that I was having thoughts maybe about harming them, and I don't want these thoughts, they'll think that maybe I'm, you know, going crazy and start worrying what that means. And so you end up just feeling very isolated with that. And I've had it at times. I get it when I'm very stressed out. If I'm at my girlfriend's family, I feel like I have to be like happy, or if I'm feeling depressed, I feel like I have to hide it. So with that comes a lot of stress. And then I start having intrusive thoughts like, oh, what if I just, you know.
Yeah, you start feeling like there's something wrong with you and everybody can see it, but nobody can see it, and there's not really anything wrong with you at all, but it's all in your head. But the big issue, and I've had this discussion again with someone I've been talking to recently, is that when you speak to doctors about this, they seem to think that it's all to do with the acne, and it's driven by thoughts surrounding the acne or whatever. They think that there's a common misconception with mental health issues. Doctors seem to think that it's manifested by something that you're actually choosing to think about. But it's not. It's just there. Like it's involuntary. There's nothing you can do about it. It just happens. And the depression and the anxiety that I felt after taking the drug, and like for the last bloody, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, it's not been triggered by any kind of thoughts or anything that's happening in my life. It's just there, you know. You just can't get rid of it. Well, there are ways to get rid of it, but I'll talk about that later. Okay, so did the drug actually clear your acne?
Yeah, I mean, I still get some spots on my back here and there now, and the occasional on my face, but no problem. But yeah, my body acne cleared up very quick on the drug, and by the time, I mean, I still have scars now in certain lighting. My skin looks horrible because of the scars. Like for example, if you go into maybe a hotel bathroom or some bathroom where it's really overhead lights and it gives that shadow effect, it looked like I've got really pitted scars, although now you probably can't really see them much. But yeah, my skin did clear up on the drug gradually. In the beginning, I remember it did get worse, like they tell you it will. And then, just gradually, it was very dry, and then it just kind of disappears, which in itself, if that was all it was, that'd be amazing. But like with most things, whatever comes up must go down, and it seems every single thing out there, for example, we talked about antibiotics, they're prescribed so easily now, as if there's no potential issue. But I think people are now discovering that they can do harm as well. And it seems like anything that offers a solution comes with drawbacks. That's just a fucked up way that life works. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the way I've put it before is that the clear skin is a permanent side effect. So if the positive side effect of it can last a lifetime, then the negative side effects can too. That's the way I see it, you know.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because people probably wonder this. If there was a way for you to undo like the permanent skin healing, you would have to trade in and go back to the acne you had before, and maybe it wouldn't go away with diet. What do you think you would do? Would you go back to that now? Or obviously I know, and we'll talk about how you manage your things now, but oh, it's cut.
Yeah.
All right.
You're back.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to ask me again because I think it froze for the whole time. Go on.
Yes.
So basically, I think I got the gist of it. Anyway, I think you're asking if I could trade the issues I've got now for the acne that I had before. Would I do it? Yeah, that 100%. I've said that so many times. Because it's been, the issues that I've had are so debilitating. They've had such a huge impact on my life. It just, the issues that I've had in the last 10 years totally eclipse any of the negative effects that the acne had on my life.
Yeah.
But that's something that you only know in hindsight, really.
Yeah.
You know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have just told everybody to fuck off and got on with it, you know. And then I would have made changes to my diet and probably would have, you know, eventually cleared it with diet.
I think when you get bad acne like we did, there isn't a quick fix, naturally speaking, but I think gradually you can reduce the triggers that might be something like dairy, for example. And then once your hormones are more leveled out as you're getting older, I know you got acne later than me, or had it for a while. Obviously, you said 29, but I think it would gradually just, you might have it here and there. Like my sister had acne, for example. I think the pill helped hers clear. She still gets spots now, and she's a couple of years older than me.
Well, this is the annoying thing. We know that most acne is caused by hormones, but the Accutane doesn't address hormonal issues.
Mm.
It just stops your skin from producing oil, which, okay, it it seems to work, but it's not dealing with the root cause of the problem. It's not balancing your hormones.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so what happened after you finished? We've touched on that a fair bit, but
So we touched on that. I mean, I do remember one key moment when I was on holiday in Morocco in 2010, so several years after stopping the drug, where I was on holiday with my dad. And I don't want to say what one of the problems is because it's a bit too open. You kind of know from something I said to you this morning, but I suddenly noticed another problem, and eye floaters suddenly as well, like severe eye floaters just seem to be triggered. And people might claim, people who are more cynical, that Accutane causes these problems might claim, oh, that could have been anything. But I know, again, from other people and the kind of problems it causes, that it's very much linked. Yeah, the floaters suddenly just came out of nowhere, and I suddenly got worse problems. Energy-wise, I think I felt a lot more collapse suddenly, but immediately after Accutane, nothing really happened. Gradually, the really dry lips and stuff like that diminished. They got better, and I just had to use a small amount of moisturizer. I still moisturize a bit now because my skin's more prone to being dry. But really, nothing got better or worse. I mean, the nosebleeds reduced, and joint pain, I don't get too bad. Like I'm not very active now because of fatigue, but my energy, my joint pain, if I play badminton weekly or exercise, isn't as bad as it would have been while on the drug. But the dry eyes and all of that shit, waking up every morning like, oh my God, I've got no moisture in my whole body, that's very much still present 13 years later. And that's never going to go away unless there's some magical cure, because it does seem this drug just dries up your entire insides. I always remember, do you remember Amanda Bynes from the Amanda Show on Nickelodeon?
No.
She's quite well known. So for anyone else who knows who she is, like, she was a big Hollywood star. She suddenly was known for having like breakdowns. You can see where I'm going with this. She started having breakdowns and that. And I realized she was quite open about having taken Accutane in the past. She didn't blame it, but she did get the side effects quite bad. She said it really dried her out. And so I always wondered, were her mental issues down to what the drug had maybe done? And I think probably. Obviously, it could also be that kind of Hollywood childhood lifestyle where you grow up.
Well, it probably didn't help. Probably didn't help much, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And there's a few. I've come across stories from a few celebrities. There was a model, I think, who'd taken it, and it fucked her up. Can't remember what her name was.
There was an actor who lost his colon. This was years ago. You probably come to circle at one point, and he got a lot of money because he sued them. But I think he was like a pretty high status Hollywood actor. So yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely read about him. Yeah. Okay. So there wasn't really any period after you took the drug that you felt normal again. You never really recovered.
No, I never felt normal.
Because I remember when I came off it, I actually felt almost ecstatic for a while because my skin was clear, and I started to feel better again. But then that didn't last very long, only a couple of months, and then I started going downhill again.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
All right. I was reading your article, the iNews one this morning, just to remind myself of all your story. But you were on holiday like 2 years after taking it, and you couldn't poop for a week there.
Yeah, that happened a couple of times. The first holiday I went on where I noticed that was in Fuerteventura, and it was like I was staying in this hotel, and I was like half bored, so I was like eating like, I don't know, 2 plates of food at breakfast and like 2 plates of food. I was a big eater, so I was eating loads. I was eating like double the amount I'd normally eat probably, and I didn't have a bowel movement the whole time I was on that holiday, which was crazy. And I can see like even when I look back at the holiday photos now, I can see in the photos, I can see like the difference between the start of the holiday and the end of the holiday. And I remember like when we flew out there, I felt terrible. Like there's a picture of me on the plane, and my eyes are all red and just look like death, you know. Yeah, and there was another holiday that went on to Cyprus, probably about a year or two later, and the same thing happened again.
But do you think that's to do with, because people might argue that's nothing to do with the drug. They'll say people get that sometimes when traveling, that they're, I don't know. It's not like you're traveling along loads of time zones to go to those places, though, is it? But do you think that's something to do with the holiday? Or?
Well, maybe having different foods. I don't know, really. It's difficult to say, and those are things that you tend to notice more when you're on holiday. Maybe it was also down to not moving around so much. You tend to be sitting down a bit more when you're on holiday, and I do a physical job, so that may have played a part. I'm not sure. Hard to say. Yeah. Okay, so are you able to list all of the long-term side effects you've dealt with over the 12 or 13 years that you've been feeling unwell?
I listed most of them, I guess. So I'll just list a few that I think are the worst ones to deal with. I think the eye floaters for me. Do you have eye floaters as well? I know that some people might have them anyway, but mine are very bad. That I know they're not something I had before Accutane as well.
I've got a few, but it doesn't really bother me that much. But I do get very dry eyes in the morning, and it takes me a while to takes a while for my eyes to wake up.
Do you use eye drops or not?
No, I don't really use anything.
I kind of have been now. For a while I didn't. I mean, they don't really help that much anyway. And they are kind of chemicals that you can get the really expensive preservative-free ones, but again.
I would say of all the issues that I've got, or all the issues that I've had, that's been the least of my worries, really.
I really hate my dry eyes personally, because if I'm in like aircon rooms, my eyes go very bloodshot, and I think that combined with the maybe mental side effects of anxiety, paranoia, I think I look fucking crazy. I start worrying about that as much as I did with acne in a way, because I don't know if mine are worse or you just don't worry about it, but yeah, my dry eyes, I hate that symptom so much.
I've had a lot of people contact me saying that's something that bothers them a lot. I think maybe I've been lucky there, and I've sort of avoided
very uncomfortable as well. I get quite blurred vision. I've had eye tests, and it's not that I need glasses, but my eyes are kind of just so dry and glazed over that often looking at a computer all day, which is obviously different to the work you do, it's very noticeable. And in the morning, like you say, it's definitely worse. But apart from that, the floaters, they're terrible if I'm in a white room or it's snowing, or I'm just outside. They're very noticeable. That does my head in. But the mental issue, partly because of dealing with the side effects, I imagine. I have the low energy and things, so that's going to make me depressed. And I can be very anxious, and while anxiety is somewhat a generic problem that a lot of people suffer from, mine does seem so severe. And growing up, obviously, I was 15 before taking this drug, so maybe I would have got these things in adult life anyway, but I never had any mental issues like that before acne or Accutane. But then I'd say, is
it like a general anxiety, or is it triggered by thoughts?
I'd say generally I'm, and it might be my personality in a way, but I notice when my health problems are flared up, because it's not like they ever go, but when my digestion and other things are worse, that seems to affect my mental health a lot. Like if I'm constipated, which happens a lot, my mind I've got this brain fog and I just feel down. And when the physical things are working better, I might have a higher sex drive. My mental symptoms alleviate a bit, but then it always comes back down again, and I always crash. If I try and resume normal things like a normal sex life, or if I was to go and drink, which I don't drink alcohol, that's going to fuck me up very quick.
Well, yeah, I actually quite fairly early on in my issues, probably a couple of years in, I realized that the anxiety that I had was actually linked to what was going on in my gut. So I would become extremely constipated, like I wouldn't go to the toilet for a week. And then the more constipated I was, the more general anxiety I would experience. And I remember working on an alarm system in a library at home, and yeah, I hadn't had a bowel movement for a week. And I remember dealing with the customer there, and or the lady that looked after the library, and I felt so anxious talking to her, and then suddenly had to rush to the toilet and had a bowel movement, and the anxiety just lifted. It just disappeared. And when I told the doctor about this, she said, "Oh, well, you're bound to feel anxious because you're worried about your gut issues." And I said, "No, I don't think that's what it is. It's something in there's some kind of link between what's going on in my gut and what's happening in my brain." And I think that basically your body becomes so toxic that your brain is being your brain is basically being polluted with all this toxic mess that's just sitting inside your body.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, that rings true for me 100%. I feel like some days I can be, like I say, my energy is better. I feel a lot more sociable. The contrast between that and when my digestion and all these things are flared up to their worst, my mental state is horrendous. I'm jumpy, paranoid, withdrawn. I hate everyone. I wish the world would die. Very depressed. And it's very much linked to my physical health. I've spent a lot of money and time researching the mental side, meditation, having therapy, trying to work out, oh, maybe there's some childhood issue. No, there's fucking not. And as soon as I would talk about the drug with therapists, they would then, let's just talk about your mum and dad. It's like, no, my mum and dad don't have fuck all to do with this, dude. So, yeah, I have gone back and forth a lot between, because it's very hard to ignore the anxiety and depression, and there are ways of coping with it better, which is mostly you have to accept that shit. You can't really get rid of it, especially when you're feeling it to that intensity. You can't just wish it away.
Yeah,
so
I had counselling for a while, but it didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I maybe felt a little bit better when I was actually in the room talking to the counsellor. And then as soon as I walked out, it just all came back.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's expensive, and I saw probably 6 or 7 people, and there's no real reason for me apart from this terrible drug. There's no like trauma in my life I need to drudge back up, and I don't really even believe that's necessary for people who have that. I think that you have to live with the past. You can spend years in therapy and get nowhere, in my opinion, but that's a controversial opinion probably.
Well, yeah, I have a slightly controversial opinion on this as well. And I'll probably get loads of shit in the comments about this. But,
people should be offended by other people's opinions, though. Like, it doesn't mean we're right. It just means that's our view on it, right?
Well, yeah, your opinions are basically based on your life experience, aren't they? That's how your opinions are formed. And we've all had different life experiences. But so basically, my opinion is...
It's fine. It was quick and forbid. I didn't listen.
Okay, you didn't freeze this end. Yeah, yeah. Basically, my opinion on the whole mental health thing, for some people anyway, is that ill health causes you to focus on traumatic events in your life. So, if like you and I are experiencing, well, I don't get it so much anymore, but we've experienced this general anxiety, and when you're feeling generally anxious, it can. And kind of negative about life, you look at the more negative things that have happened in your life and you focus on those things.
Yeah.
There's people that have had far more negative experiences in their life than probably you and I have had, and they just brush it off because when you're healthy, you're usually happy. To a certain extent.
Definitely, I couldn't have put that better myself. I feel like, if we didn't have our health problems, or I know you're better off than me, and we'll get to that, people.
Yeah.
But I know that when I'm feeling bad, I suddenly care about stuff that when I'm fine, I don't give a shit about. I start asking questions. Oh, was this because my last relationship messed me up and my ex was a narcissist? Whereas when I'm fine, you could ask me about my ex, I'd be like, I don't care. I literally don't give a fuck. That was so long ago. But when I'm down, everything from the past is suddenly, oh yeah, those people got me. I hate everything. So it's very much your physical health has to be up here to have your mental health up here as well.
Yeah, this is one thing that people don't understand when they ask me how I can stick so strictly to the foods I eat now, and it's basically because when I eat the right foods, I feel a lot better and I feel a lot happier in myself. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to feel fucking depressed and anxious, and I know that if I eat certain foods, they will make me feel like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's such a massive difference. I mean, I can be driving when I'm feeling well, when I'm not waking up in the morning with gut ache or whatever. I'm driving my van to work in the morning. I actually enjoy getting up and going to work and playing music in my van or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Life is good again.
Quick question. I know we're still talking about the symptoms, but a quick question for you. Do you think there's any viable reason that makes sense why some people take this drug, don't get hit that badly, and then a couple of years later or whatever, suddenly collapse in health? Like they get all the common Accutane symptoms.
Okay. Yeah. So my theory on this is, obviously, I think we've discussed like what I think it does to the gallbladder and stuff in the past, but I think it causes an issue at the root of your digestive system, or you know, something up high in your digestive system with your liver or your gallbladder or something, you know, and then gradually over time, the state of your digestive health begins to deteriorate, but very slowly.
Yeah.
So you notice some small things at first, but then gradually, as your gut flora becomes more and more imbalanced, and your gut becomes more and more leaky, which I think a lot of people experience after taking Accutane. I think a lot of us have got leaky gut syndrome, but I think that manifests over such a slow period of time that people often don't link it to the drug. So if I believe that the drug leaves people low on bile. Now I'm not a doctor, so you know that's not to be taken as a substitute for any advice or anything you're told by a doctor. I should probably put that in there so I don't get sued. But yeah, I think that if it leaves you low on bile, then that's gonna bile basically lubricates your digestive system, helps you to digest your food and fat.
Bile is, right?
Yeah, I should probably explain that. Just take it for granted that people know as much as I do. So bile is stored in your gallbladder. It's produced by your liver. It's stored in your gallbladder, and when you eat certain foods, when you eat fats, it causes the gallbladder to contract and squirt bile out into your small intestine. That helps you to break down fats. It lubricates your digestive system. It can actually keep like bad bacteria at bay and parasites and stuff as well. So imagine you become low on bile. All this food is passing through your gut, and it's like basically it's because it's not being lubricated. It's like scraping away at your gut wall, and then you've got the bacterial element of it. Your bacteria is gradually becoming more and more imbalanced, and then the bad bacteria start producing all these like toxins when they feed on certain things that you eat, like sugars and starches, and then you've got like all kinds of different proteins getting through your proteins and lectins from plant foods as well, getting through your gut wall, and then your immune system's responding, and it just turns into a massive cascade of all these weird symptoms that are occurring. And it just becomes chronic, you know. And there's not a lot. There's a few things you can do about it, but I'm not sure it can be cured.
It's interesting, just to touch briefly on it, because again, people probably, the average person's never heard of lectins or any of these things. Everyone thinks that vegetables only contain, things that are good for you, but they do have an element
micronutrients.
But yeah, they definitely seem to have an element of anti-nutrients, as some people call them now, because the plant essentially, apparently, doesn't want to be eaten because it's somewhat a living thing, and so they try and detract people from eating them with their phytic acid and the other stuff that you mentioned. But a lot of people, because obviously I went vegan for a while, and that definitely made my gut problems a lot worse. A lot of people who haven't taken Accutane, who go vegan, end up destroying their gut because too much of that seems to demand a lot of your gut health. And probably most people with the kind of processed foods they're eating don't have optimal gut health, and maybe they've taken antibiotics. That seems to be a common reason why people can't be vegan, because they end up with these severe gut problems, become intolerant of a lot of foods like I did. And as you know, I was very hardcore about it for animals and ethics. It was very hard for me to step away. My health was very bad the whole time, but it took me a number of years to go, right, I'm going to have to say fuck it to the ethics for now, because I'm feeling awful. This is not going to work out for me. And now I know, and again, we'll talk about at the end, I need to make some changes to my diet, because it isn't going to get any better right now. And I'm waking up with terrible bloating and somewhat pain and discomfort. It's very tight, my stomach. And so to go back to the side effects, that's probably my worst one, and I think is responsible for our overall health failing, because obviously if you're not digesting what you're eating, it doesn't matter if you might be eating super healthy organic food. Even if your gut can't break it down, or if it's gonna, if you have leaky gut and toxins might go into your blood barrier, your brain, whatever, then you're gonna suffer that. And many people can get away with eating bread and pasta and whatever, and I used to be able to. But once you've got the gut problems, you have to take it really seriously. And lately I've just been in a mindset of I'm depressed. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life in terms of a job. So the way I'm going to cope is just eating sugar all day. And it's not even conscious again. It's almost automatic addiction, where it's a way I've been coping with feeling so unwell. And I know that that's only digging the grave for me.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest problems with anybody who has a chronic illness is apathy, or the removal of hope.
Yeah.
Because as soon as people lose hope and lose their positive mindset, then they just don't give a shit anymore, and they just they just revert back to the eating foods that are damaging their health, or not living their life in a way that promotes health. Just giving up is probably the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah. I've been terrible lately in terms of binge eating, what I'm eating every single day. I could tell you what I ate yesterday, for example, as a few snacks. I got some Snacker Jacks, processed shit. I had like 11 of those. This was after I'd eaten a salad for lunch, by the way. So I didn't really need food. I was just bored at work. And again, it's become a habit. And I ate a whole pack of fruit gums, just 150 grams of sugar, just to try and get through the day. Because by the end of the week, I'm tired right now. And I'm probably, because of my diet, I'm probably on a bit of a up and down blood sugar roller coaster. But to try and keep it up without having withdrawal, because you have to go through the withdrawal to then, balance out your blood sugar again. I'm just, right, I need more sugar just to function for the rest of today. If not, I'm going to fall asleep or something.
Yeah, I remember having a phase where I just had to go to the nearest. Am I back? Okay, right. Maybe we won't use Zoom again. Maybe we'll use Skype next time.
Maybe it's my internet though.
I remember going through a phase where I used to get really low on energy, and obviously, as I said before, I work on my feet, and I just have to go and buy like 3 or 4 chocolate bars and just nail the lot. And that would get me through the rest of the afternoon. But alarm bells started ringing when I started, and this is pretty fucking gross, but I started shitting green. And I thought maybe this isn't such a good idea. And then I realized that the sugar was feeding all this bad bacteria that was growing in my digestive system, making me pretty fucking ill in the process. So it was a false economy. Okay, let's get back to these questions.
Okay, we talked about most of the side effects, I think.
Yeah, we've gone off a bit of on a bit of a tangent there. Okay, so I've thrown this one in there, but optional in brackets. But
I'll answer it.
Yeah, has the drug affected your sex life?
Yeah, it's a bit better now, because at one point I was using porn as a way to, I mean, I'd say most men in their 20s probably watch porn anyway, but again, because I was depressed, that would be another way of just dealing with it or helping me to sleep. So at one point, although my sex drive was low, if I turned porn on and without being too open, I would, get in the mood. And so at one point, I was watching it probably every night. And, that was probably draining my energy more, I imagine. And then when I had a relationship and I was trying to do the whole no-fap, getting away from watching porn because I knew it wasn't great. And, you can't just watch porn forever. And I think it can affect a healthy relationship because it's literally lazy just watching whatever you want. It's not good for your dopamine, So normal sex can pale in comparison to all of the potential of the internet. But when I stopped watching porn, I think that definitely helped my sex drive, because beforehand, it was probably slightly due to that I didn't get in the mood that easily. Remember when I was single and I dated a couple of girls like once. So embarrassing. Like it wasn't even anxiety that was stopping me. My health again, just no sex drive. So I tried to do it and it just wouldn't work. So I couldn't get a boner at all. And the girl was pretty good looking. So it was embarrassing. And afterwards, shortly, I drove her home and never saw her again. And I felt shameful. I didn't deal with a situation where I didn't tell her, sorry, this is probably because of these reasons. Now, however, when I do have sex, which isn't as often as I'd like because my energy levels again and my libido are pretty terrible, it's good. And the problem I had, if I'm being open, and I don't mind being open because I feel it might help someone, the problem I used to have was because I couldn't really feel anything. I could go for an hour and be bored during sex and just want it over. I was like, and then the ending would be like, man, that was fucking shit. Now, because I'm not watching porn all the time, or I try and not watch it at all, but sometimes, oh shit, I've watched it. And my girlfriend doesn't want me to watch it, so that's another reason I try not to. But
she's going to know now, Stefan.
but when I don't watch it, and so I'm not doing it very often, sex is good. And it can be 10 minutes like it probably should be. Fuck, no, that's detailed, isn't it? But no, it can be good, normal. I don't have a problem with it. But the problem I had before was like half an hour to an hour of, I can't even feel this shit.
Yeah. The thing is, we laugh about it, but it's not really a laughing matter. And I remember reading a story of a guy who took Accutane and it left him with erectile dysfunction, and he actually killed the doctor that prescribed the drug. I don't know if you've read that story.
The French guy?
Yeah, I can't remember what nationality it was. Yeah. Yeah, I think you've relayed that story. I think
probably
you're talking about that.
My old videos are up, but yeah, I'm sure I probably mentioned that at one point.
Yeah. And actually, there's some of the lads that have killed themselves has been one of the main reasons that they've done so, because it's not just a big thing for guys; it's a big thing for girls as well. And I actually get a staggering amount of.
Come again, fuck.
Sorry.
I don't think it matters. Carry on.
No, you're back. You're all right this end. Yeah, I have like a staggering amount of girls that get in touch with me, or girls and guys that get in touch with me, saying that it's left them numb below the belt, or they just don't get an enjoyment from sex anymore. And
being open again, while when it comes to if I start having sex, basically, then I'm fine. But there's definitely problems there that I know are caused by Accutane. Numbness I get, uncomfortable, like pins and needles feelings there. I don't get like spontaneous boners anymore, which I'm not looking at it from the point of view, I should take testosterone supplements. I think when your overall health is terrible, then there's no point branching off onto every single thing. I think overall you need to really treat something there. And when you look at it from again, I guess an evolutionary point of view, there's no way that Mother Nature wants you to reproduce sick, diseased people. So it's like, you shouldn't be having sex because you're suffering and you're sick right now.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I've come to view it. Like basically your body's telling you that you're not fit to be a parent.
Yeah.
You're not healthy enough to procreate. So,
And I feel that's true. Unfortunately, I see people my age now, people I went to school with, many of them have kids. And if I had a kid, I would really struggle because I have to be pretty self-absorbed because my health's so bad that I have to reserve my energy. And I would love to have a normal life, and it definitely has stopped that. And I feel like, yeah, the sexual issues can be one of the worst problems. And as you know, I went on that BBC documentary at one point, and that's what they kind of highlighted. They interviewed me for a while, and I talked about all my side effects. And I didn't see the documentary until it went live on TV, so I didn't know how they were going to have shot it. And then the narrator's going, Stefan has sexual dysfunction, or they said erectile dysfunction, which wasn't really correct. And then all these people at college saw it, and I was so paranoid that week because I was working as a barman and people recognized me. I could tell they were staring at me for a reason. Maybe I was just paranoid. But I was like, oh, fuck, I've gone on live or national telly and told people about my penis. But I felt like at the time I needed to draw attention to it, and I hoped that there would be some good that came from that. And I don't think it achieved as much as I hoped.
Yeah, when I did that interview with iNews, I wasn't expecting that to be in the headline. I knew, but I kind of knew from the get-go that they would hone in on that.
Yeah, is iNews quite famous, by the way? I'd never heard of it before.
It's part of the, I think, I might be wrong, I think it's part of the Independent. It's like a offshoot from the Independent.
Yeah, they like to focus on headlines. Penis doesn't work anymore, killed himself, whatever. Which is relevant, but there's much more to it, obviously. As we've been talking about with the other health problems, there's a whole bunch of shit.
And people don't realize, well, I guess that this could be a big warning to anybody who's watching this and they're thinking about taking the drug. Just think about how much of an impact that has on your relationships in the future, you know. You might be worried that you can't get a girlfriend because you've got spots, but what about having a girlfriend and not being able to have sex with her?
Yeah.
Which situation would you rather be in? I mean, luckily, the sexual side effects for me didn't last that long, and I don't know, you know, if it's affected me that much. But I certainly get contact from a lot of people who are dealing with these issues, and girls as well seem to experience dryness, which leaves them unable to have sex at all.
Without pain and stuff.
Yeah.
It definitely affects both men and women. And while it is, you know, a very delicate, private conversation, I guess, that many people wouldn't want to talk about online, I think that it's important to raise awareness of it. And while we might feel embarrassed if we're experiencing those symptoms, the people that should be embarrassed and ashamed are the fucking drug makers who know that these side effects are caused, but will continue to risk other people's health for their profit. Fuck them.
Well, this is exactly why I started this channel, mate, because I think there's a lot more value. You know, you can bang on about it on forums or Facebook or whatever as much as you want, but you're not raising awareness. The only way to raise awareness is to tell people stories, and people are too lazy these days to sit and read someone's story. So this is how everybody consumes their information these days with YouTube. So I thought, what better way than to start interviewing people then? Because the amount of people that I have emailing me, you know, I've got so many people lined up to interview that I can put loads of these videos on YouTube.
Yeah. There's one more thing I just wanted to say that might not be in the questions, is that there's a forum a lot of people would have seen. Once I just asked people, I said, does anyone else have these side effects? I thought a few people would respond. That now has over 1 million people that have read the topic and thousands of people that have tried to find an antidote. And at one point years ago, we were talking about bile production and all kinds of potential issues. Everyone was trying to really, let's figure out if anything will work. You guys buy those supplements, we'll try this. I remember reading that late at night, 3 a.m, just hoping someone had the answer, because it really felt at one point we were onto something. And there was a guy called James who was suffering with the side effects, and you may know of this. He called me one time because he was really suffering and struggling to accept what had happened, and maybe he had it even worse than me in some areas. But I know he had a lot of problems like hair loss. We didn't mention hair loss, but I mean, your hair looks amazing. But
yeah. Luckily, my hair hasn't been affected either.
yeah, my hair, I won't bother going into that because it's more of a superficial thing, but I like the hair texture all over my body's really fucking weird and wiry now. But anyway, this guy James was struggling with a lot of mental issues as well as a result of the drug. Agoraphobia, he quit his job, he couldn't work anymore, fatigue, all the problems we're talking about anyway. And he called me one day and I didn't know who it was because he'd messaged me and asked for my number, but he didn't call me for months after. So I said, he called me in the morning. I was tired. I was like, sorry, who is this? He said, James. And I said, sorry, who? Because he had a different username as well. And he hung up because he couldn't even talk to me. He was too like nervous and, you know. Mm-hmm. And then months later, there was an article about someone who'd killed themselves. And I didn't realize it was him.
Shit.
And, yeah, it's just fucked. Like I talked to this guy a lot during that point, and he kept saying, like many of us did, we were hopeless. Like, I can't go on. I'm gonna fucking end my life, and he actually did because he couldn't do it anymore. And when I realized it was him, I felt like shocked. It's just mad. So I just wanted to say that because this can happen to people. I know that a lot of people will try and blame the acne, but the people that are killing themselves most of the time are killing themselves because of the side effects of the drug. Their acne is better. It's nothing to do with acne.
Yeah. I've had a couple of exchanges with people that are almost at that point. There was a guy who I was talking to who's like just confined to his bedroom with curtains closed all day, every day. And there was a young lad who was 17. I won't mention his name, but he took the drug at 14, and his body is just falling apart, and his mother's got no sympathy for him. And he was kind of phoning me in tears, in despair, like trying to figure out what he needed to do. And he was just, I mean, more than anything, just grateful to have somebody that he could speak to, because as you know, when you go back to the doctors and tell them that all these things are happening, they don't take a fucking bit of notice, and they don't believe you most of the time. They tell you it's all in your head, and then no help whatsoever.
So angering. I remember going to the doctors when I was probably 17, shortly after taking the drug, where I wasn't getting better like they suggested I would. The side effects were all there, obviously. So I went with my mum because I was quite shy and I didn't want to go on my own. My mum said, right, we've got to speak to a doctor. And I think I'd probably read stuff online. I knew they wouldn't be able to help or they wouldn't listen. But my mum, while not deliberately trying to do it, pretty much sided her and the doctor against me and said, he's been reading a lot online, like, this can't happen, can it? And the doctor pretty much said, look, we've done blood tests. There's nothing wrong, Stefan. I think that, if anything, all I can offer you really is antidepressants. And I just want to express how fucking annoying that is for everyone, not just Accutane sufferers, many people that get side effects from other drugs or have complex health problems like thyroid disorders that aren't picked up. They have all these blood tests. They are sensible people who know their own body and they feel like shit. And a doctor's just there like, we've done the blood tests. And that would be fine if they could say, we've done the blood tests. These blood tests don't cover everything and we can't help you, basically. But instead, they're like, all we can do is diagnose you with some generic bullshit like IBS or chronic fatigue syndrome, which doesn't help you at all. Just admit you're fucking shit, man. But people are left off with the impression that there's something wrong with them, have mental issues. Yeah.
What these doctors fail to remember is that the most important marker for health is how you feel.
Yeah. And if you would never come into the doctor before a medication and suddenly you're saying, hey, I've got like 12 symptoms and I can't imagine these, there's physical proof of these problems, then it's like clearly the drug was the cause because your health was fine before, in my case. Yeah. Took the drug and suddenly you have all these problems while on it that are associated with the drug and many other people experience. But all I want to say to anyone in our position is fuck the doctors, not because they're deliberately trying to be unhelpful, but don't waste your time, really. You can get blood tests if you need and get things checked. But if you're expecting them to help you, like many people do in the beginning, they're not going to help you. Like your best chance is looking at what you can control. The damage to some degree is going to be permanent, like in terms of you know, we might never get rid of dry eyes and various symptoms, but you can learn to manage, obviously, with certain diets and whatnot.
Yeah, it's all about learning to manage what you've been left with, basically.
Yeah.
And one thing I was going to say earlier when we were talking about the digestive system is, for years people have said you are what you eat. It's not really, that's not really true. I'd say it's more like you are what your digestive system does with what you eat, or you are what you absorb from what you eat, basically.
Yeah.
Because this drug alters the way that you digest your food completely. In my case, and in your case as well, there's going to be all kinds of issues arise. You're going to be low on certain nutrients. Things that aren't supposed to get into your bloodstream will be getting in through a so-called leaky gut, and you've got to take all these things into account. Okay, let me look at my list of questions again. I think I was going to ask you, have doctors been helpful during the aftermath? But I think we just covered that.
The thing is, as well, like you're saying, and I know there's people out there that don't believe anything that's not on the NHS website, leaky gut. I think NHS have a page that suggests that isn't real, or adrenal fatigue. But the problem is, if you listen to traditional, conventional medical advice, then basically you're delusional. There's nothing wrong with you at all, which is obviously not true. And there are many people that have to go to the naturalistic, holistic way of healing, that whether it's leaky gut, there's holes in your intestines or not, there is physical improvements when you make dietary changes like you've experienced. And obviously, if I had the fucking willpower, I probably would have experienced myself by now. And I know there are certain ways of eating that make me better or worse. Like, as I say, when I was vegan, high carb, no, and I actually ended up getting some weird dick issue for a year, just to be open again about the penis. For about a year, that I thought this was never going to go away, and I started thinking, oh, fucking Accutane again. It's another Accutane. Maybe it wasn't, but I think it was down to a candida issue. I had something that, when I Googled it, was called balanitis. Have you ever heard of that?
I think I've heard you talk about it before, actually, on one of your other videos. Yeah.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, fuck. I think so. Yeah.
But I had this like weird red patchiness on my dick all the time. And I found a way temporarily to get rid of it was with coconut oil. But if I missed a day, and I tried this for months while I was still vegan, it would come back the next day, this weird redness. It looked messed up, and yeah.
Well, yeah, coconut oil is antifungal, so...
It is, that's why I was using it.
Yeah.
But when I just stopped using it for a while, and I wasn't vegan anymore. I was like, oh, thank fuck, I don't get that issue anymore, at least. So that's just a point that I think our digestive healths are, again, you'd think, oh, something wrong with my dick. No, there's probably something wrong with what you're eating and your digestive health and overgrowth of bacteria. Your gut's really at the center of your whole being and body. That I think that's a good place to start for any issue.
Yeah, and going sort of talking about the vegan thing, there's a lot of people that have been damaged by Accutane who go vegan thinking that it's gonna help them, or they've got acne and they go vegan thinking it's gonna help them.
That's why I did it.
Yeah, we could. That would be another. I could talk about that for another hour.
You don't want to bring the angry vegans to you, man. You don't slagging off vegan like
yeah. I would say if anybody's watching this and they have been sort of left damaged by Accutane, or they've got acne and they're watching this, then veganism probably isn't the pathway to clear skin or magnificent health. But yeah,
there was about 100 ex-vegan videos on this channel. The guy's a little bit controversial, Sferridge, you know who he is, don't you?
Yeah.
But these people who he interviews, regardless of what he might be like, and I think he's quite funny in some ways, but many of them seem very logical people, and they didn't take Accutane, or a few did actually, but they went vegan for years, and many of them have to learn the hard way. They might have been activists, and they really committed to it, and maybe ate whole foods, ate really healthy, but got a lot of deficiencies, which I think is a lot easier to get on a vegan diet for many things. But yeah, we won't talk about the vegan diet. That's too much of a...
Actually, there was something I was going to mention when we were talking about the mental health thing, and like going to the doctor, and then the antidepressants are like a cure-all for everything. I was going to mention something that I read in a book called A Mind of Your Own by Kelly Brogan. She's a holistic psychiatrist. She talks about a lady who was catatonic, like, so she'd lost the power of speech. She couldn't talk or anything. And they actually went to the extent of giving her electroconvulsive therapy. Where they put the electrodes on the head, and and then they realized that it was all caused by a vitamin B12 deficiency.
Oh, what, really? Is Kelly Brogan the one that focuses on natural dopamine supplementation and stuff?
Yeah, she's big on gut health, and actually at the start of that book, one of the case studies that she talks about is a lady who took Accutane, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Okay, so what tests have you had in the aftermath, and did they show any abnormalities?
So I had a lot of blood tests with the doctor because I felt like there's got to be something. And I kept reading things through my own research, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, that I thought, oh, maybe because you have to request a test for certain things like the thyroid, which we won't get too much into, but they only check T4, which if your T4 is okay, that doesn't necessarily mean your body's converting into the active T3, as we know. But my T4 was always fine, apart from one time. My TSH level was high, which means your thyroid's underactive. Because I was convinced I had an underactive thyroid. I had no energy, no sex drive. Your thyroid's very much responsible for your sex hormones, your body temperature. I was cold as fuck all the time. And I still think I have a thyroid issue now, probably. But the one time it came out, they said, let's give it a while. And then it was always normal again. But I did have that. And then when I went to do some testing, one last thing on the medical side, whether related to Accutane or not, I always have high bilirubin levels, which could indicate my bile isn't being processed through my body right. So could add into the theory that bile isn't flowing correctly. Yeah. But maybe I had it before. I don't know.
I remember when I had a blood test that showed high thyroid stimulating hormone TSH. People who've not had that don't seem to understand how fucking awful it feels. You just say, oh, I've got a thyroid issue or whatever. But I felt like I was going to fucking die. Like, I felt terrible when I had that issue. And then I think
for you as well, you cut gluten out for 3 days and felt markedly better. That because I still feel shit, maybe it is some kind of autoimmune thyroid issue that are a lot harder to pick up on. That until you cut out gluten, you're fucked basically, because your body attacks itself.
Well, I'd say I didn't feel like I was cured, but I definitely felt better. I felt an improvement. I wouldn't say I felt like amazing after I took it out, but I definitely felt.
You've said in the articles that the lights came back on, right?
Basically, yeah. So the kind of depersonalization issues that I was suffering with got a lot better, but they didn't go away by any means.
Did you ever substitute with the fake, the knockoff bread products and stuff, where you just knew that stuff was...
I did for a while, and then I realized that all those things, all the starchy carbs, were causing me a lot of issues as well. And even things like, I started on the go, I'd grab like sushi and stuff like that, and then I realized even things like white rice were causing me issues. I'd eat some white rice and my head would just spin. So I had to cut that out as well.
Sorry to interrupt, on the Accutane long-term side effects recovery forum thing that I mentioned, who I think his name was Joseph. You might have come across him at one point. He was just, years ago, he reduced his diet to shrimp and rice. That's all he ate for all meals. And I thought I couldn't do that at the time. But that seemed to help him for a while. I don't know what happened to him, because he was very much focused like you are. I think you've got more willpower and determination than I do, because all I can think of is I don't want to give up bread forever, or most food groups. I find that really overwhelming. So I kind of just ignore the problem and carry on trying to, take the odd supplement that might improve it slightly.
Yeah, well, food used to be a big part of my life, and I was a big eater. But really, I'm quite happy to trade that for feeling normal, or feeling somewhere close to normal. it's quite depressing, and it does affect your social life big time, because a lot of social gatherings involve food. Um, I for a while I used to worry about what people thought. When I'm offered foods and I don't take them, or it's a bit like people who don't drink as well. I don't really drink that much these days.
Or vegans. I had to do it when I was vegan. I can't eat that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how people are more willing to accept that you're a vegan or a vegetarian than they are that you have a food intolerance.
I think so.
Yeah. So if you tell someone I can't eat that because I've got an intolerance to it, they think you're a bit of a nutcase. But
Yeah.
if you tell someone that you don't want to eat meat because you love animals, which is fair enough, I've got nothing against that. But it's just accepted, and that's all down to social conditioning, really, and people thinking that.
Somewhat, though. I mean, vegans definitely get some stick. I would say there was a few people that kind of laughed at the fact I was vegan and thought I was stupid for being vegan, and were like, "What about the canines?" And they make all those arguments. So, but yeah, ultimately they'll go, "All right, it's your choice. It's not going to affect me." But a lot of people do seem to make it their business what you're eating. It's like, dude, like I'm not telling you have to give up whatever. Just eat what you want. You can't have it.
That's one of the hardest things to deal with, really. It's one of the hardest things I've had to deal with like being a DJ, and I was a very social person, like prior to all this happening. It can be a real killer for your social life. I just ended up living like a recluse for a couple of years. But once you get over the mental battle, and basically, this is something I've come to realize in the last couple of years. Successful people don't give a shit about what other people think.
Definitely.
So you just got to stop caring what other people think.
Because social things are a big part of like your work life and stuff. I obviously don't drink because I can't get away with drinking. And I don't really enjoy social gatherings with work colleagues anyway. It's just I'd rather not spend any more time with work people than I have to already.
I didn't watch this video.
Yeah, no, they won't fucking watch it. But no, fuck those guys. Nah, when they like to say when it's coming out, it's kind of awkward because I want to. The biggest reason is if I don't drink, I won't enjoy it because drunk people aren't that funny when you're not drunk yourself. But that doesn't, like, people are like, oh, but yeah, everyone gets hangovers. I'm like, no, I get seriously ill for days. My liver's fucked up. So instead of that, I just tell people, I'm just going to tell people I'm a severe alcoholic. I can't go anywhere near alcohol. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I cannot be around you. I just say, I don't want to go.
Yeah, well, some of the things that have happened to me when I've been drinking after taking Accutane, not while I was on it, I should put that in there.
Oh yeah.
And actually, this was an indicator that there was something really going wrong with my body. Like, there was one time when I was actually playing a DJ set in a bar, and 1 minute I was putting a record on the turntable, the next I was waking up at home on my bed, fully clothed with my shoes still on, and I had like 4 bottled beers and a couple of shots, and that was it. Normally I could have drunk double that and been fine. So that really showed me that there was something going on with my liver, or the alcohol just wasn't being processed in the same way. And then I had another time when I drank pretty much the same amount on Christmas Day, and I woke up.
Oh, you've cut.
Am I back?
Yeah.
I woke up. I went out Christmas Day. I had 4 beers, a couple of shots. Didn't remember leaving the pub. Woke up on the floor of my lounge, and I'd been sick. Like, I was in a puddle of my own vomit, basically. Still, again, fully clothed with my jacket on. I'd obviously just managed to get myself home and just collapsed on the floor. So
Let me ask you something as well, real quick on that topic. When I get sick, which isn't that often, apart from how I feel normally, if I get ill and I have to throw up, or if I've been drinking, which I don't anymore, but if I have in the past, when I go to be sick, I think maybe it's like the bile thing again, or the liver. I'm just retching, like nothing's coming up. It's very hard for me to be sick. And when I am, it's very painful and not much comes up. I'm guessing that hasn't been a thing for you.
No, I can't actually remember the last time I vomited.
My whole, like the internal muscles that are making you throw up, I feel them tense, but it's like weird, like nothing coming out. So don't know what that is.
Actually, that reminds me, did you have any reflux at all? Have you suffered with reflux?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I drink alcohol, I get acid reflux straight away. At one point, I think that if I've had too much chocolate or maybe dairy, it can trigger it. But most of the time, no. But yeah, I definitely have had it, and it's very horrible. I don't get heartburn. I just get that disgusting battery acidy taste.
Yeah. You get like
So
the
yeah,
burning at the back of your throat.
yeah, again, a digestive thing. So my whole digestive system's in ruins. I forgot to mention, because I talked about the bloating, I don't know if I mentioned how bad my constipation is. I've tried adjusting fiber levels. Like typical advice doesn't work at all. I bought one of those squatty potties because I thought, oh, maybe my posture didn't help, unfortunately, and it looked fucking weird. My girlfriend's like, we have people around, they're gonna say, have you got a kid? Like, what the fuck's with the stool? But I've tried a lot of stuff basically for the digestion, apart from drastically changing my diet, and that's probably what I need to do. I've just now ordered, as I told you, some acid supplements because
Yeah.
I feel I'm obviously not breaking down my food properly. I'm getting so much bloating. I've ordered some probiotics. And yeah, my constipation's been one of the worst symptoms, though, for sure. Just
I've actually got the digestive enzymes behind me that I told you about.
I looked them up on the
I've got to buy more later on, but I'll just get the jar.
Yeah.
Okay, so for anybody watching with these same issues, these are the enzymes that I use. Don't know if you can see that. Just the standard Solgar digestive enzymes. They're not paying me to say that, by the way. I wish they were.
Did you try some other brands and they seem to be the best for you?
Yeah, the reason why I use these is because they've got so many things in them. So they've got ox bile. If you're low on bile, that's really they're good because they've got ox bile in them. They've got betaine HCl, which is like stomach acid, and then they've got pancreatic enzymes in them as well. So there's protease, which is for breaking down protein, amylase, which is for breaking down carbohydrates, which I don't need because I don't eat carbohydrates.
I know a few people have got diabetes, type 1 diabetes, not type 2, which would be but the genetic after Accutane as well. And at one point I bought a load of pancreatic enzymes because I found some website where some guy healed his Accutane problems with them. Unfortunately, it didn't help me, but there's definitely some kind of assistance needed for the gut.
Yeah, I went to see my doctor last week, and she actually got me some prescription she gave me a prescription for digestive enzymes.
Oh, okay.
I haven't tried these yet, but they haven't got ox bile in them. But I'll probably give those a go at some point because that works out a lot cheaper. Obviously, they're called Creon.
Yeah,
if you can see that.
Okay.
But actually, I'm glad you mentioned the diabetes thing because there was a girl. I don't know if you saw it. There's a girl in the Accutane long-term side effects group.
Ollie girl?
I can't remember what her name is. But and if you're looking for a place to go for, to meet with people who've got the same issues as me and Stefan, then go to the Accutane long-term side effects group on Facebook. But this girl, we were talking about gallbladder function and the bile thing, and she said,
"It's all right now.
It's all right, you're back." Yeah, she said that she'd had, because she was type 1 diabetic before taking Accutane, when she started to have the same issues as us, she was sent for something called an HIDA scan, which is a scan that I only learned about fairly recently from a doctor in the US called Roaccutane. He's like, he's a low carb doctor who lost a shitload of weight. And I saw that he was eating a carnivore diet. So he posted a picture of a big load of burgers on his Instagram. And I just sent him a DM saying, I wish I could eat like that. And I told him about some of the issues I've had. And he said, you need to go for a HIDA scan. So basically, this girl had a HIDA scan, and what they do is they put like a radioactive tracer into your veins, and then they track its with I think it's a CT scanning machine. They track its movement through your liver and gallbladder to make sure that they're functioning correctly and that the bile flow is as it should be. And she was diagnosed with biliary dyskinesia, which basically meant that her gallbladder wasn't functioning correctly. So that's something that I definitely want to explore in the future.
I think one benefit of, well, I say benefit, one of the things that's come out of taking this drug is you get to appreciate the body. And I think most people will wait for their body to go wrong before they pick up a book on, they won't even know what a gallbladder is there for, right? They will let doctors cut out organs if the doctor says so, if they believe the doctor. I think that this whole mentality people have of expecting a doctor to fix you is wrong, and that no one's going to ever care as much, even your family and friends, because they can't experience your own life. No one's going to care as much as you about your health. So I think everyone, whether they're healthy or not, should learn a lot about what makes us healthy. And there's a lot of different ideas on that, obviously, but it's interesting.
Yeah, well, I think there's people who are voluntarily fucking up their bodies.
Yeah.
And there's people, I know there's people that I went to school with who they look at me now and say, fuck, how do you look so young? Or, there's people that I went to school with.
Yeah,
right? I'll be 40 in January. I'll be 40.
You look like you're in your late 20s or early 30s.
Yeah, so I think, but I always really cared about my health, and I think a lot of the people that are trying to fix themselves desperately after taking this drug are people that really, really care about their health, and they're more in touch with their bodies. And this is something actually that Tim Sheaf has touched on, famous ex-vegan. He says that there's long-term vegans who are suffering, but they're not as in touch with their bodies as he is. He likes to feel the best he can.
But for those that don't know, Tim's a parkour athlete. He doesn't do parkour much now, but he's very well known and very athletic. And so, if anyone's going to notice health declining, it's him. And again, like you mentioned, and as Tim has pointed out, vegans most of the time are staying vegan for the dogmatic beliefs that killing animals is cruel, and in many ways it is cruel, but that it's evil or wrong, that even when their health's suffering, they'll kind of underplay it. They will never talk about it because they never want to give the idea to other people that veganism's bad. When I used to advocate, I would never talk about how bad I felt because I thought people need to stop killing animals. And when you're in that mindset and you're watching all the slaughterhouse footage, it does feel like the biggest injustice in the world, really, the scale it's happening on. So, just want to slip that in.
Maybe we should do another video on that topic for my Primal Nutritionist channel.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I've lost the questions here slightly. Let's try and get back to where I was. So have you done any stool testing? What were the results?
We were talking about testing for a while there, weren't we?
Yeah. Keep going off on tangents.
But I did pay for some other. I stopped going to normal doctors because I realised that was hopeless. I did do a couple of tests. I did the SIBO test pretty recently, and I was diagnosed with methane dominant SIBO, which would explain potentially why I'm constipated all the time and why fiber and different forms of carbs might be a problem for me. I did a full stool analysis. That was a few £100s, so these tests are expensive, but that showed I had it. I should get the paperwork. I'm not going to because that's too much. We've been going a while, haven't we?
Yeah.
But I definitely had high fat in my stool, meaning that my body's not digesting fat properly, which could potentially lead to, vitamin A, K, D, E, malnutrition because you're not absorbing fat-soluble vitamins.
That's one of the most common things I hear. People that have taken this drug, they end up with a vitamin D deficiency or deficiencies in fat-soluble vitamins and
when you look at
fatted stools.
Yeah. because when you look at vitamin A, there's obviously people who have different opinions on what Accutane might do. Some think it never leaves the body and that we're toxic in this artificial version of vitamin A, and so we need to avoid vitamin A foods. I certainly tried that to some level. When you're vegan, you're not eating direct vitamin A, only beta carotene, and I felt worse, if anything. So I guess I trialed that. But when you look at the symptoms of low vitamin A, it is many of the symptoms we have with our vision being poor at night, dry eyes, eye floaters, I think can be vitamin A deficiency, mucous membranes being dry, which can be the whole digestive lining. So for a while, I was convinced reading into it that, and I still am when I think about it now, that we just aren't absorbing fat properly. I mean, you're taking the digestive enzymes, which should help, and obviously the betaine with pepsin is meant to break down the fat, and that probably will help. And as you've said, your digestion is a lot better than it was before that, and before you cut certain foods out there.
Well, at the beginning of this year, I think it was in January, I decided to try a carnivore diet for a month. So an all meat diet, and I just basically ate steak every day. And then towards the end of it, I started to feel pretty shit. I became quite constipated. Nothing was moving. And I decided to go and see my doctor, and she arranged for a blood test. And what was crazy about that, I was eating red meat every day, and I had low iron. And also my good cholesterol was, she said it was lower than she would like to have seen it.
Yeah.
And basically we put that down to poor digestion. And that was when I really started taking digestive enzymes routinely again. And as soon as I started taking the digestive enzymes regularly, my energy levels went up. My energy increased because it was helping me to get more from the food I was eating, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I want to point out, sorry, I think a good interview for this channel would be the Lewis guy, because similar to you, he's cut out, most processed foods, and while I don't know if he was hit as bad, because when he talks about his story, he doesn't always talk about Accutane heavily, which you and I would mention that as a primary issue for what messed our health up. He's definitely doing a lot better than he was, and he seems like a very honest guy to me in terms of his story being very consistent. And
what's his last name and what's his channel?
I could tell you after.
Is it Lewis Rowlands?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he has a channel with his American friend.
Okay. Yeah, check out his channel. I've watched a few of his videos, and I watched your video with him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Do you want to mention the name of your channel so that people can go over it?
Because I started a new one recently, I'll mention my old channel because they could find the newer one, and I'm not really going to talk about Accutane in my videos, I don't expect, unless my health improves. And then
but if people wanted to watch that long video you did with Lewis, then
yeah, you'd have to, the raw within, if you search the raw as in like a lion within, then you'll find the channel and you'll find a video. It's one of the very few, if any, live streams on my channel with a guy called Lewis, where we talked about veganism quite a bit, because I'd just quit the vegan diet shortly before that. And we talk about Accutane and a bit about depersonalization, I think, as well, because he had a lot of issues with that. Yeah.
What things do you do routinely to manage or cope with feeling unwell every day?
Yeah, I definitely do have moments where I deal a lot better. Like the symptoms seem to bother me less, either because I'm reading something or working on something that I think offers a bit of hope. That can offer some relief. I don't always have to be hopeless and I'm gonna die because I can't do this anymore. Having responsibilities helped. I used to struggle to hold down a job because I was so depressed, but now I'm not living at home with my mum anymore, so I live with my girlfriend. We do just rent, but I've been living here a couple sort of 2.5 years. Got my little bunnies who I love, my dog. I love animals. The bigger things of the universe are fascinating. So getting out into nature. I enjoy watching YouTube. There's various things I do. I used to sort of meditate every day. I've become a bit lack with that. But when I feel bad, I don't really have any great technique. I just try and accept that I can't deal with that. And now I know that I do need to probably be a bit more drastic with my dietary health and what I'm eating in order to. But then there have been times in the past where I've been pretty strict, years ago, where I was just eating mackerel and bags of salad or vegetables. And I really like food, and I know you said you did as well, but I would really struggle to drastically reduce my diet because veganism was pretty restrictive, and I got into the habit of going to a restaurant and being bored because I could only order 2 options. So it'd kind of be that all over again, I guess. But I'm somewhat addicted to food. I think that's one of the things that makes me happy. That obviously makes everyone happy, is that sometimes you've been at work all week, getting a takeaway or going out for a meal. So it's difficult because if I'm to maybe offer myself a better long-term solution to having better energy and whatnot, I probably do need to give up a lot of the things I'm enjoying right now. But that's going to mean, like you said, the social problems of not being able to go out and order anything decent, you know. So that's what's stopping me from doing it. And I'm just I don't know if it's because of veganism. I'm just eating so much now because I'm just like, shit, I'll have ice cream, I'll eat chocolate. Lately, I've just been eating too much.
Yeah, well, I realised with my IBS and everything a couple of years ago, basically the less food I eat, the better I feel.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking to you the other day about only eating 1 meal a day. But what I tend to do now is try to focus on nutrient density. So make sure that the meals, the small amount of food that I am eating is packed full of nutrients. And as we've talked about many times, the most nutrient dense foods are animal foods. They're the ones, animal protein and fats are the foods that are going to keep you fullest for longest,
Well, we evolved.
Also, when you feel unwell every day, it's easy to get stuck in a rut. And the thing that really got me through was just thinking about all the things that I enjoy in life.
Yeah.
If you lose sight of those things, then you're fucked, basically.
Yeah.
So if anybody is sitting there watching this and they're really unwell after taking this drug, then you have to really focus on what could be on the other side. What light is at the end of the tunnel, and just never abandon hope.
Yeah. I'd say with the hope thing, I think for anyone going through this, it's definitely normal, isn't it, to have days where if you're not progressing, all you see is this is always going to be the case. I'm always going to be tired or whatever. But yeah, definitely having hope, which I often do when you've got a goal that if I can get through this, I'm going to be able to achieve all this stuff. You have to keep that in mind. And if I'm to change my diet, and I don't think I can do it like you do, there's no way I could do 1 meal a day. There's no way I couldn't do it.
You need to get yourself into ketosis, mate. It's a lot easier once you're in ketosis.
Probably. Yeah, it'd be hard right now on the carbs, wouldn't it? I'd be a fucking mess. That's the thing. If I go a few hours without food at the moment, I get moody and
actually, I should mention one of the most beneficial things that I've ever done was when I went to Thailand and I fasted for a week, because that showed me that when I didn't have anything inside me, I felt normal again. And that was what really helped me to make the connection between what I was eating and how I felt.
Let's give Tim Sheaf a quick shout out again. 35 days without food though. Fuck. On his own, without provision. And that's when a lot of the vegans will say that's why Tim failed, but he was doing some desperate stuff because he'd been vegan for about 6 years at that point, or 5 years, that he'd exhausted the other options and he was trying to stay vegan. So it really annoyed me personally when people attacked him, because I'm like, a lot of the people attacking him have not been vegan as long as he was and haven't tried what he has to try and, maintain the diet. And the moment he jumps ship, they act as if he's the worst person ever. But that's how culty the vegans can be. And no, to say can be, because some are fine.
Yeah, well, anytime I have an issue now, if I have a bit of a skin problem or if my gut's really playing up, my fallback position, or the thing I will always do is fast.
Yeah.
A 1 or a 24-hour fast normally can reset things. Or sometimes I'll go a weekend without eating if I can. and that just will just calm everything down. It's a quicker way of calming things down. If I've
Good way to save money.
yeah, if I've eaten the wrong thing, if I've gone out for a meal or something and I know I've eaten something that's affected me, then the best way to sort it out is just to fast. But it's difficult when I'm at work and I'm working on my feet.
I think with this as well, for those that have been affected by the side effects, the goal has to be, because many people, like my girlfriend, and I won't, put her issues, she probably wouldn't care, but she has some genetic things that have come to light, joint problems that she has to deal with probably for the rest of her life now. Most people I know, if I get speaking to them, have some kind of health issue or have in the past. So I think that the goal with us, and the goal for me right now, is to, like, the idea of childhood perfection health, which I had before, that I don't think that's ever going to happen. But if I aim for reducing my bloating and improving my digestion, that is feasible, I feel, and something you can track yourself, and something to aim for where you don't need a doctor necessarily. You can work out what foods are triggers for you. And then it's just about the willpower, which, as I've said, I need to work on.
The biggest thing when people, or the biggest mistake that people make when they eliminate things from their diet, is they will eliminate them one at a time. They won't eliminate all of the things that commonly cause problems for people. So when I was trying to clear my acne using diet before I took the Roaccutane, I'd remove wheat for a while and it wouldn't go away. Then I'd put the wheat back in, and then I'd remove dairy for a while and the acne wouldn't go away. But I didn't realize that both of those things can cause acne. And then a few years down the line, obviously realized that all carbohydrates can cause acne. So yeah, people aren't really stripping things back enough. Okay.
If anyone's still watching this, by the way, thank you for your interest, because this is
it ended up being quite long. We knew it was going to be long anyway.
When we talked before,
one thing I was gonna add. We spoke last time. We spoke on Skype. It took 4 hours. We probably should have recorded that. One thing I'll say, actually, that I said on a video that I did a couple of weeks ago with a personal trainer with some clients of hers. It's quite a morbid thing to say, but when I was 23, I think I was, my mum died. She had a brain tumor, and seeing someone that you care about, or seeing someone that you love in front of you dead, has a big impact. And it made me realize how short life is, and we're here to enjoy life, and we should be living our best lives. And in order to live our best lives, we need to be healthy, and that's what drives my determination to regain my health, because I know I'm not here for very long, and I want to enjoy my time on this earth. I think that's something that a lot of people don't really seem to grasp. They just kind of go through life,
definitely
working, getting fucked up at weekends, just destroying their bodies in pursuit of fun or enjoyment, and they're ruining the last, I don't know, few decades of their lives because they're going to end up unwell. This is a no-brainer, this next one. Do you regret taking the drug?
No, I wish I could take it again.
Yeah, they should put it in the fucking water supply.
Yeah. All I would say as closure to that is, obviously, if you are someone who has acne, it seems like the biggest problem in the world, having terrible skin. And I get it, like, you might have really bad acne, and so you might have tried a bunch of stuff, and the question for you is, are you willing to risk your health? You might end up with the problems that me and Tom have, or worse. Some people have had their moved, and they're the only people who end up getting their money back from these, forgive my French, cunts. I fucking hate Roche. The thing that annoys me most about Roche is when people kill themselves, and obviously they're going to protect their product, and Roche aren't the ones pushing this drug anymore. They've sold the rights on, or however that works. They come up with this generic answer that, oh, people who have acne get depressed, so it's nothing to do. There's no proof of Accutane. It's like, well, you're the ones who should test it, and you're the ones who know it does cause suicide. And the FDA, fuck you as well. Suck my dick. There's obviously a lot of people that are very they advocate for this because they feel it's fixed their skin, and you have to listen to both sides, I guess, but you could end up in either position, and I would rather have bad skin than all of these.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice at the end of the day. And they say these things that you and I have been through are rare, but that's not what I see, on Facebook, and also the amount of emails since I've shared my story, the amount of emails I've had is just ridiculous.
Is that difficult to deal with? Because a lot of people, like, I know even with me, when I've never said I've had the answers, a lot of people, when I had popular videos on the topic, would find my Facebook and message me, and I would be feeling bad when they'd message me, and I'd be like, I'm either going to have to ignore them or crush their hopes because I feel fucking terrible. I've got nothing to tell them myself. So do you find it hard when a lot of people are reaching out to you because they're so desperate for something, and they want an easy answer probably as well, which isn't what anyone can provide for this, right?
Yeah, it can be hard when people are looking for a cure, and all I can say to them is, this is what's worked for me. I'm not completely cured, but I feel a lot better than I did a few years ago. And no, I don't mind people contacting me. It obviously takes up a fair bit of time to respond to people all the time. But really, it gives me more of a reason to stay true to what I'm doing, because I don't know, it just gives more value to the experience that I've had. If I can turn the hugely negative experience that I've had into something positive, and turn it into an ability to help others, then I don't know, I just feel better about it. It just makes me feel like there may have been some reason for it happening.
It's good to think that way, I think, because there's some, we might go through other things that are going to be difficult to deal with, and sometimes, unless you're super religious and you believe that God is, there, sometimes it's like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, why bother being here at all when you're suffering, right? So I think it definitely helps when there have been moments where I thought, maybe this makes sense that I've gone through this. There'll be moments of like, oh my God, and I can't explain them now, where it feels like this had to happen. Because maybe, like I say, I would have ultimately taken this drug even if the risks were more apparent, because if not, maybe I would have been stuck with acne. And so maybe that's the universe guiding me. I had to end up on this journey, because why even get the severe acne in the first place when a lot of my friends were fine? So it is what it is, I guess. A lot of people, you think that when you're young, I'll choose my life, maybe be a footballer, but life kind of shapes you, and you're obviously wanting to be the advocate for health now. And, if I could get better, I'd definitely love to make something of this as well and help other people, because there's certainly many people that, regardless of taking this medication or not, need to work on their health.
Well, I could give an example of a girl that I helped, a Venezuelan girl. She probably wouldn't mind me mentioning her name, but I won't say what her name is. But she contacted me, and she was dealing with a lot of the mental issues, and she had a lot of digestive issues as well. And we spoke twice, I think, maybe 3 times. And she took everything that I said on board. And then within a couple of weeks, she sent me a photo of a list that she'd written of all the things that had vastly improved. And yeah, she was so grateful for the help that she'd received. She said she'd seen, I think it was 9 different doctors, and none of them could help her. And one doctor charged her $600 and told her, come back when you're coughing up blood. So she was quite happy to pay me for my time as a health coach in exchange for the advice that I gave her. And she said that the things I told her, no doctor had ever told her. And then now she's actually switched to a complete carnivore diet, and she's just started working as a health coach.
Yeah.
She showed me a photo of the side of her. She put like a sticker on the side of her car with like advertising her services as a health coach and all the things that she can help with. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, nice one. Just a quick question on that as well, because when I went vegan, it was for the idea that I thought a lot of people were saying we couldn't digest fat. And obviously, if you can't digest fat, the answer is not take fat out of your diet, because then that's multiple deficiencies. But obviously, I felt worse on a vegan diet. I think I was interrupting you earlier when you were speaking about your carnivore experience. So I don't think you finished why you didn't continue with that. Because I mean, it is at the moment, it's very new. And I wouldn't want to personally try it unless I absolutely had to. Partly because I think there's a lot of animals being killed, but also, if you imagine if everyone did that, it wouldn't help the environment. But also,
did you see the article that I shared quite recently on my Facebook page, which I should probably mention, which is the Primal Nutritionist? I shared an article on there which said that the carnivore diet was the most vegan diet you could eat, because technically,
if you just eat beef,
then
maybe.
Yeah. If you just ate beef, 2 cows would be enough to sustain you for a year.
Yeah.
And they worked out so that's 2 animal deaths per year. And then they were like,
would do that, like
they were comparing that to the amount of animals that are killed for like the production of crops and stuff. Farmers killing all sorts of wild animals that eat their crops.
Yeah, and that definitely happens to some level, doesn't it? Vegans will argue it's not the same as slaughterhouses and it's not intentional, but yeah, there's definitely death regardless of what you eat. I don't think people should use it as an excuse to, fuck it doesn't matter then. But I mean, like, vegans think that they have a really low footprint, but they'll order vegan Ben and Jerry's and all these processed foods that are made across the world, and they're so obsessed with the label, they won't look at it from a logical standpoint anymore. And I know we keep talking about veganism, but I think it's very prevalent now. Like, it's growing massively, and many people think it's the best thing to do for health, which it's so not. Like, from experiencing it, it's not what our bodies evolved eating. Vegans will say you can get all the nutrition from a vegan diet, but you can't absorb it all. Again, in my experience with my gut health in particular, like, your body does not break down plants very well, and soy and all these wheat-based fake meats.
Well, terrible. Yeah, this is why it's important for people like us who've been affected by Accutane to make sure that we're getting the most bioavailable sources of foods and proteins. Things that are easily turned into substances that our body can use.
Whereas I saw this guy. I was randomly watching his video. I'd seen him before. He's actually vegan, funny enough, but he was doing a video on bloating and how he got rid of his bloating. And he happened to mention in the video he went on antibiotics and Accutane for acne. He didn't mention that he'd got all the side effects, but maybe it affected his gut health as well. And it was him that mentioned about he doesn't take them long term now, but for a while he took the betaine to the point where you take 1 less than giving him reflux, then gradually reduced it, and his stomach now can digest what he's eating. But I mean, he's on a vegan diet, which might not be optimal, but he does the whole foods thing. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I keep seeing people, because we've got to remember acne is so common, that so many people have taken this drug. I'm surprised there isn't a ban on it, or that it hasn't got to the level of publicity.
Well, that was on my list of questions, actually. I was going to ask.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think the drug should be banned? But just to answer what you asked me about the carnivore diet, why it didn't work for me. It was basically all down to gut function, and I think mostly down to a lack of bile and enzymes. It's pretty gross again to talk about bowel movements, but every time I've tried it, I've just been explosive for the first week or so. A lot of I don't know. I think gallbladder just going mental. It would just sit there for a while, and then my gallbladder just go mental, and I be explosive, and then gradually things would just slow down to the point where it just didn't move. And then something I was going to talk about earlier. There was the first time I did it. I actually, to clear everything out, I had to use an enema, And I was
Yeah.
going to mention when we were talking about constipation earlier, I used to be embarrassed talking about these kind of things. And I remember at the time when I started doing it, the girlfriend I had, I used to hide it from her. I used to sneak the enema kit into the bathroom. But that was a really good way of when the constipation became too much. I started getting really anxious. My brain fog was just off the scale. I would do an enema, and it would just clear.
I've tried a few.
That was a good way of managing things.
That Lewis Rowland's guy advocates for that as part of their detoxing program, coffee enemas. It gets bad rep. A lot of people will say that they're pointless or whatever. But yeah, they definitely, if you're constipated, can help. And they're not like really uncomfortable or unpleasant. I
would actually say I've done a lot of coffee enemas, and I would say I would actually advise people to just do, if you've just got a problem with constipation, do just water enemas.
Yeah.
Just boil the water, let it cool down, obviously, and then use that.
Can I tell an embarrassing story in a minute?
Yeah, okay. I actually had a bit of a bad experience with the coffee enemas. I went on holiday to Mallorca last year, and I had the bright idea to do one every day while I was there. And my prior to going on holiday, I felt fine, but then after doing that for a week, I came back with like quite bad fatigue. I was fatigued to hell, and I think it may have been the coffee enemas that did it. I'm not sure, so I haven't done them since.
Most people wouldn't want to even think about doing them. I remember when it was mentioned to me that I was like, that Lewis guy was really having to talk me round to it, because I was telling him about my problems from Accutane. He said that's part of what he recommended. But anyway, my quick story was that I got constipation really bad one time. You might know about this. Happened last year on my girlfriend's birthday. So the day before going to my girlfriend's, because when I say I'm constipated, I can go every day, but it doesn't it doesn't come out easy. And I'm constipated. Regardless of what the term is, you have to be going less than 3 times a week. No, I'm constipated. I'm not going to the toilet probably, man. But I couldn't go the day before we were going to travel to her parents for the weekend. And on the drive there, I started having issues that morning where I couldn't piss unless I stood up at a weird angle, because like I didn't know what was going on, but I couldn't piss. I couldn't piss or shit. I'm like, this isn't good. And we stopped at a McDonald's drive-thru about 40 minutes into the journey to her parents' house, which is like halfway there, just to try and pee. And I needed to go so bad, like when you need to go, obviously it's like painful. Couldn't go. And I knew it's because I needed a shit. Couldn't go the whole of that day, so I didn't pee all day. And I thought I'd leave it till the morning. I really didn't want to have some person look at my ass. But it was 6 a.m. and I hadn't slept because I was trying to like pee. And I think I'd gone like little bits here and there, actually. I should clarify, because if not, that might have been really bad. But it was getting to the point where I literally couldn't go at all. Sitting down, it didn't matter. I couldn't pee. And so I called A&E. I was like, I don't know if I need to like come in for this. And they said, yeah, come. And they saw me straight away. They like did the scan to check how much was in my bladder. They said, there's not actually that much there. But I said, I can't poop. There's probably that. And I was there for like 3 hours, and I realized they'd forgotten to call me through. And I was like, it shouldn't be taking this long. So I should have said something sooner. But anyway, this guy, I can't remember where he was from. He wasn't English, so there was a bit of a language barrier. He had to do an enema on me. It was so embarrassing, man. But instantly, it helped. I had to have a curtain that I was worried someone would just pull. Like, you could see like people walking past because it wouldn't fully close. And I was having to go on just some like weird potty thing. And then I had to tell them I'd gone so they could bin it. And it was a huge shit. And then I could pee again. But even now, because of my constipation, I'm having trouble where I keep feeling I have to pee, because as a man, those areas are very close. So if you're getting bunged up constantly, or whatever it is that's causing this, you also can't piss.
All these things that we're having to deal with just because of this fucking stupid drug.
Yeah.
Okay, let me look at my list of questions again. Thanks for sharing Thanks for being brave and sharing that story with us.
Yeah.
I was just thinking then, actually, it's good that we managed to maintain a sense of humour during.
It's just because you said about enema that I thought I could have just done that myself if I'd have known that's what it was. I thought I might have, I don't know, something blocking me internally.
I don't even know where I got the idea to try enemas for the first time. I think it may have been I went for a colonoscopy at the start of all my issues, and I had to obviously do an enema before I went for that. And I realised that on that day, when I was empty, when my bowel was empty, I felt good.
Yeah.
Or I felt normal. So I thought, okay, maybe this is something I need to look into. And that was when I started doing it. Okay.
I thought of a good title for this episode potentially, because I think if it's 2.5 hours or 3 hours long, people got to have a reason to click it, and I reckon like you got to go a bit clickbaity. I reckon Accutane, gambling my health for clear skin, something like that would be good.
A roll of the dice, Accutane, a roll of the dice, or something like that.
Yeah.
Russian roulette.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard it referred to.
My original video was called "Why Accutane Should Be Banned," and I thought I was just talking to a few people when I made that, and then it got like 70,000 views on my very old channel. But if I hadn't put a title like that, it wouldn't have got that many views. You have to play the game a bit on here.
Yeah, maybe we should slag off a few other YouTubers and then put that in the title. That'll get us some. Maybe we should put Tim Sheaf and who else have we? Maybe we should actually put Frank. We should talk about Frank Tufano. Actually, I was going to mention Frank Tufano, a well-known carnivore dieting YouTuber who actually took Accutane. Did you know that?
He?
Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
did he have a problem with it?
He's spoken about it a few times, and he actually cites that as his main reason for switching to carnivore.
How do I not know that? I watch the guy often.
I thought you would have known that. Yeah, he's spoken about that a few times.
Wow.
He's become a bit of an egotistical prick lately. I've stopped watching him.
I find him funny though. He's very egotistical.
He is quite funny, but he has got a massive ego.
Cranky face, man, looking good today. I think he's hilarious. Vegans hate the guy.
I think he definitely went down in my estimations when he started slagging off Sean Baker.
Oh, did he start?
Yeah, Sean Baker was sharing screenshots of messages he was sending him, slagging him off basically.
Just to let you know, my battery's down to 11%, and we probably have gone along well. That we should probably wrap in the next.
All right, 10 minutes. Okay. So, there was something else I was going to ask. Why do you think people like us are going unnoticed? I think we've pretty much covered that, haven't we?
Probably because people like us aren't gonna, even me doing the live stream, aren't gonna want to admit to having sexual problems, severe digestive problems, where they have to go to the hospital and have their poop pulled out of their butt. That's not quite what it was. But they're quite embarrassing problems, or you get shunned immediately because the blood tests are all normal and doctors say you're crazy.
Yeah.
Or they suggest you're crazy.
I think it's basically down to doctors' reluctancy to actually take you seriously, and they just tell you that it's all in your head and send you on your way, basically.
Yeah. And I think because acne is seen as a minor issue, they assume that a drug for acne must be some minor drug, but it's a fucking cancer drug, as you and everyone else should know. And then obviously all the people that do well on it, people notice that, and often people associate it with clear skin. They might hear of depression, but they think, that's just a few people who are probably depressed anyway. They'll hear the statement from Roche and think, yeah, that makes sense.
They just sweep people like us under the rug and just see us as collateral. And,
absolutely.
Yeah, again. It's all right. I don't mind the C word. Okay, so what are your hopes for the future? We pretty much covered that, didn't we?
Yeah, just want to not be suffering as much as I am currently.
Yeah, keep improving.
But hopefully I can take it more seriously and do a follow-up in a few months or whatever, come back. And my goal is just to increase my digestive symptoms or, decrease my digestive the digestive symptoms and have better health in that way, because I think that will make a difference to a lot of things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then if I could have good health, I would like to get out of insurance, which is my job currently, because not for me. And I feel like I've had to kind of settle for very mediocre work because I'm exhausted and I don't have a lot of energy to make real changes. I've spent a lot of time trying to fix my health, whereas other people would be focusing on their career goals, going to university. I was dealing with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so a few things to add at the end. I think if you're interested in some of the things that I'm doing to improve my own issues, check out some of my other videos on this channel. But I will say that the main things that I'm doing that have improved my health, I've done a series of liver flushes. I'm not going to give people instructions on how to do that, because that's up to you. If you want to do that, then buy a book on it and give it a go. As I said earlier, I'm not.
I know what it is,
Yeah.
but do you think it's pretty uncomfortable to go through that process?
You can feel unwell for a couple of days afterwards, and you definitely feel the impact of it for a couple of weeks while your bile is sort of recharging. And I've experienced strangely a bit of back pain, which is something you experience on Accutane as well. When I've done liver flushes, like in the 2 weeks afterwards, and a bit of back pain and joint pain and stuff, which is a bit crazy. I did 7 of those, and then the autoimmune paleo diet, low carb, trying to keep myself in ketosis or using fat as fuel most of the time. And also, because I've got an imbalanced gut flora, a low FODMAP diet really helps me as well.
What's your, if you don't mind me asking, because partly because of the diet I had when I was vegan and partly because I'm eating crappy now, I am still obviously not like an obese guy, but I've definitely put on stomach fat. I don't weigh any more really than I did, but and right now, because I've not eaten, it's pretty average, I imagine, but I don't want to be fat basically. And because you're eating a lot of meat and vegetables, is your body composition, would you say, good in terms of like muscle compared to fat?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, prior to going on Accutane, I used to hit the gym quite a lot, and I'm still fairly toned. I wouldn't say I've lost any muscle mass or anything. And in the last couple of weeks, I had a little bit of excess fat. I was carrying a little bit of excess fat, but then in the last couple of weeks, I've been doing 1 meal a day, as you know, and I've lost a fair bit of weight in the last couple of weeks, but I'm not losing any muscle really. I'm not really worried about that.
Because what's your plan with it? Do you think this 1 meal a day, is that something you're doing temporarily, and you hope that, we'll have to go in a minute because my Mac will turn itself off, but do you think that you'll end up trying to increase meals again, or you think this is maybe something that will have to be done long term?
I actually had 2 meals yesterday, so
you're a naughty boy.
It's kind of like a reset thing. It depends how much I eat for that 1 meal as well. How much I can cram in.
There's definitely a lot of people that have done that. On the YouTube community, like Vegetable Police.
Yeah, there's a video about it by a channel called What I've Learned, which is pretty good.
I've seen that channel,
their videos are really good. But I've recently, when I was doing it previously, I was eating my meal in the evening and then going to bed on a full stomach, which I wouldn't advise if you've got IBS. I've recently been eating first thing in the morning, which seems to give me more energy during the day at work. And that came from the snake diet guy, Cole Robinson. So he's another guy that's worth checking out.
I'll let you wrap up because I don't want this to be just like disappear.
Okay, so thanks for your time anyway, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Remind people of your name, Stefan, and we mentioned your channel already. If anybody wishes to make a donation to this channel, they can check out my Patreon page, which I think is just patreon.com/lifeafteraccutane. I'll put all the links below. And you can subscribe to the channel as well, because there's hopefully going to be more interviews. And also, yeah, I mentioned earlier the Facebook groups. There's 2 Facebook groups that I frequent. There's the Accutane long-term side effects group, which is mostly people that have been affected long-term by the drug. And there's I think it's Accutane injuries. I think is it injuries, side effects? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
I can't remember what it's
below.
called.
You can link it.
Yeah, I'll put the link
Yeah.
to the other group below. I'll put links to both of those groups below. And yeah, thanks for watching. I know this has been a long video, so if you've stuck with it and watched the whole thing, thanks for watching. And there's going to be more to come. And yeah, thanks again, Stefan. And I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Cheers,
You
mate.
too.
Thanks.
Bye.